Welcome back for another episode of HealthTech Growth. Today we have Rob here with us, who has turned losing division into a profitable division in just 9 months. And he worked across multiple industries on how to elevate your sales strategy. And not only just that, because all of us understand we have to be able to convert every single conversation into a client. But when we are focusing so much on what to say, how do we represent ourselves, we're losing the message in itself. So we can't wait until Rob shares his expertise with us today. And before then, let's get started on today's episode.
Welcome to HealthTech Growth, the weekly podcast for healthcare founders and innovators, where we explore essential strategies to create successful and sustainable healthcare startups that improve patient outcomes and transform the healthcare industry.
Hey Rob, thanks for joining us. I can't wait for us to dive deeper into the subject. Now, we know you have years, decades of experience being VP of sales and divisions, and now as part of the board advisor for PulsePoint Path, we're definitely seeing different conversations with startup owners and scale-up founders to really think about how are they thinking about expanding the business and having a shorter time span to getting to that buyer buy-in, and not feeling like they're constantly having conversation and yet another conversation to follow up and eventually actually losing the prospect. So love to hear some of your perspective and things that you being involved in conversation. What do you think is the most challenging side when people get into a position that they have such a passion, amazing service and product, but can't really get other people to see the value?
Well, there's a couple things that go into play in there. The one thing that you said, which I really love hearing, is you're having a conversation. A lot of times people think about sales, like, oh, you got to pitch this, you got to get them by. No, and the one thing you said at the beginning is like, you don't need to turn every conversation into a sale. And I'll tell you why. When I first started my career in classified advertising, selling classified ads, I was selling the legal directory, and I was on the phone to this lawyer, and I was really excited about all the demographics and everything that we had, and I was just turning out all this information to him. And then he's like, oh, this sounds interesting. And so what type of business or law do you do? He goes, oh, well, I'm business to business transaction. I was like, what? He goes, yeah, I do business. I'm like, oh, you know something? I don't think we're going to work for you. It's like, what? I said, we're mainly DUI, criminal, divorce lawyers, but we don't really do too much business to business transaction. He's like, so you're not going to take my money? I said, I'm a sales guy. I'll take your money, but I just don't think it's going to work. But if you know any DUI or divorce lawyers or something like that, send them my way. The guy was so impressed by me saying this is not a good fit. He referred 2 people to me the next week. One of them became my biggest client. So just remember, when you're going out and you're starting those initial conversations, it's to see if it's a good fit both ways. And I know it's hard when you're a startup. When you're a tech startup, it's like, I want to get as much as I can possible. But you want to be a resource to everyone that you're speaking to, whether you can help them or you know someone else that can help them. It's just starting that conversation. And again, sales is like the human body. 2 ears, one mouth. If you're so busy talking, you're not using the most important things of your ears and listening to what they have to say.
It's all about not just listening, it's the intentionality in listening. And I think most of the time we got so excited about, oh, I want to respond to that. Oh, yeah, I love what you were just saying. You listen for the chance to simply say something back instead of the active listening of understanding, which is, Rob, what you're trying to say is understanding what they need, asking great questions. And if you ask the right question, and sometimes you can be so prepared, you know exactly what question to ask to lead you to the things that you need to know. And therefore, it becomes a repetition, it's streamlined, and you can get the conversation and direct it in the right way. And so what would be some of the strategies people can come up with by asking the right questions while they're listening to the cues of what their prospect is telling them?
Well, and I think one of the first most important things is having the right value proposition. And people think of value proposition, and the value proposition needs to be in your customer's voice, not in your voice. I worked with a father-son team, insurance inspection company. They're around for 40 plus years, couldn't break $1 million. I said, well, why should people work with you? We have this time, service, and quality. Time. I'm like, okay. I went out to their 3 best clients, asked them 3 questions. What value did they bring that you expected? What value did you bring that they didn't expect? And what's the best thing about working with them? The first 2 are just loss leaders to get them talking. It's that third one that's the hook. They all said the same thing. Rob, in this industry, insurance, there's always going to be problems. And when there are problems, we know we can call or email them to find out what happened, who's involved, how to make sure it doesn't happen again, and get back to us within 24 to 48 hours. I was like, huh. Like that sounds like good customer service and communication. They're like, yep, they do it. Not a lot of other people do. It's like, well, what about time, service, and quality? They all said the same thing. If you're not doing time, service, and quality, you're not working in this industry. So we changed the value proposition from time, service, and quality that all the other inspection companies were beating their chests about to, hey, we have the best customer service and communication. When there are problems, and there will be, we'll be part of your team. We'll make it a non-factor as soon as possible. That next year, they grew 26%. After that, 63%, because they were speaking to the market in the market's voice. And it's a hard thing to do, especially in the tech space, because you get so involved in all the details and all of that, how it all fits together, that it's hard sometimes to take a step back and say, you know, what's in it for them? I actually was just reading that book. There's a book here that what's in it for them. It's the most important thing that you have to remember when you're doing sales. Sales is not about you. It's about them. What's in it for them?
Exactly. It's about finding out what challenge they have or what goal they have. Perhaps they're already on the trajectory to make that goal, but it's not in the pace, the time frame, the people they want to do it with to make that goal. So they are seeking out alternatives or anything that augment that. So if you can figure that out and then feed it by your solution, how you can contribute, close that gap, make them speed up the progress, that's when people start become interested in what we have to say. And I think also, Rob, you mentioned something is really crucial is that we know not everyone is good at building relationship. And that's why when we see founders, there are 3 personas we typically want them to have. One of your founder level probably is that visionary. They are the engineers, they're the doctors, they're the people who actually have some kind of background in health tech. They are wanting to fulfill this gap that they saw, this solution they really believe in. But sometimes because we're not trained to communicate the most effective way in a marketing, sales, and really truly just relationship building way, then you do need a co-founder or a second best hand who are really good, what we call them the connector and promoters. And those people have the both skill set and behavior to do exactly that, to be able to transform the message in a way that everyone connects and communicate the exact same way, because we also see many companies that everyone says something different about what they do, and then it creates a brand dissociation and confusion. You don't want that. You actually want everyone to talk the same way, just like Rob's example about that value proposition. And it's no longer you work for this company, you're working for this result that you can create for others. And now, of course, the third persona is going to be someone who's great at operations, who's great at putting things in the good workflow, that everything runs like clockwork. So you're going to have your visionaries, your promoters, and your execution experts. So then the 3 of them can work together. So don't feel burdened that you're not one of the person who can just go out and make all the relationship. You probably have someone in your company right now that can do that. And if you already is that person, then truly figure out the messaging part is so crucial. So Rob, how do you think people, besides doing what you suggested, ask some of your best customers, right? Getting some of the buy-ins. What other ways people can find out the right language and messages to say?
A lot of, some of it's just, talking with other people in the industry, talking to, finding, and the funny thing about this is every time I recommend doing a joint venture, sometimes people are like, what do you mean a joint venture? Find people that have similar products to what you have, that have the same customer base that you have, and see if you can create a joint venture. Because one, that helps you and it helps them. So you're helping them with the clients that you're already in, you're making an introduction. The clients, they're already in, they're making an introduction. If they're a valued vendor for that person, they're going to listen to them. It helps you get in faster. It helps them go, okay, I'm going to pay attention to this person a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. It's finding that true partnership. And I think a majority of the small businesses, one of the studies says 60% of all clientele came from referral partners. And those referral partners has to have the right joint venture. So that means you guys all serve similar clientele. If you're in the senior care market and you have someone working in pediatric, that doesn't really quite make sense. However, it's still worse to have a conversation because they might know someone who's in your niche market of senior care and be able to make that introduction. But when you go into a true joint partner venture, you guys should have similar population that you serve, but just different methods. So then you also don't feel like you're in competition with anybody. You're actually supporting each other as the way that you move forward. And sometimes, would you say, Rob, finding referral partnership can be a challenge? What would be some of the suggestions on finding the best referral partners?
You have to have the same mindset. You have to have the same beliefs in how you do business. Because if you're let's build the relationships, it's all about the relationships, and the relationships will last over a period of time. But they just want to get in the door at any cost. You don't want to do business together. So you have to kind of have the same business way of doing business to be able to really align each other properly.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, we at PulsePoint focus so much on the human capital, the social capital, and culture capital, because we believe it's not just about partnering up with anybody, or you shouldn't really be doing business with anyone to take on that client. At the end of the day, if they're paying up your behind, it's going to suppress your energetic side of how you perceive things and really put a damper on the rest of your team and their team as well. So be able to have those specific assessments, even for our partners, we have them go through different behavior, skill set, and as well as looking at how they communicate with the others, because we care about having that true alignment, true vision to actually do something amazing in a collaborative sense, and not just this back end, oh, when I think about you, then I will refer, right? How do we actively work with each other? Now, when you're thinking about referrals, your clients are truly your best referrals. So what can they do to make sure to keep their clients satisfied, keep retaining the client, make sure they don't drop out? What would be some of the suggestions when it comes to measuring and maintaining your client satisfaction?
Again, it goes back to 2 ears. Listen to what they're saying. Listen to how they're talking to you. Listen to things that they do, things that really matter the most to them, and asking the right questions. It's like, how are things going? Is there anything that we can do better? Is there something that went wrong? And that's the funny thing, Sabrina, is a lot of times companies are afraid to ask those questions because there might be something wrong, and they don't want to hear that if something's wrong. But what I tell every business that I work with is, things wrong early as opposed to late, because if someone says something early and you're able to fix it, okay, then that's a non-issue. If they say it after it's happened for months, quarters, years, and then they're just done with it, there's less likely of a chance that you're going to be able to fix it and make it better. I mean, I worked with the insurance inspection company, and one of the first times we did an inspection for a new client that we had, something went, this was wrong. And so we looked into it, like, you're absolutely right. We did that wrong. We're going to put these measures in place to make sure this doesn't happen again. And it was so funny because the client said, wait, you admitted that you did something wrong? And we're like, yeah, because you were looking for this, but we gave you this instead because that's what everyone else is looking for. That's not what you're looking for. And they were just like, and the guy just looked at me and goes, I'm going to give you more of my business because you're the first person that was honest with me and just spoke openly. And now I believe and trust you.
Yes, it's about admitting that you didn't do something correct and be able to apologize for it. And now some of you guys probably all heard about the 5 love languages, and there is actually 5 apology languages. I actually did an episode on this a few months back on when companies did something wrong, we actually have to own up to it, hold ourselves accountable, tell your clients publicly or privately, but we have to be able to say, I'm sorry. That the other strategy, make sure you address, is summarize what you actually did wrong. So then the client can actually think, oh, you actually realize you're not just saying apology, I'm sorry, just because you're saying it. And you also have to think about how do we prevent things from happening. We never wanted to just apologize and say, oh, I understand what's wrong, but have no solution, or saying we're going to figure out how to not have this happen. And those are showing the true authentic side of who we are. And that's really about honesty, integrity, and knowing if we're going to hold ourselves in this high standard and be honest about what we did, now, of course, we'll be able to do that for all the things for our clients. Now, one of the challenges that I have many conversations with the client is that they have a new lead company and they're definitely getting a lot of appointment booked, but the show up rate is sometimes can be as high as 80%, but sometimes can be low as 20%. So when you're thinking about addressing those in that follow-up, what do you feel like most of the time is the biggest challenge or mistake people are making?
I think the biggest mistake that a lot of companies make is that they look at quantity over quality. It's funny, one of the other companies I'm working right now, I'm working with the founder of this company that he built this whole platform and we're kind of growing it out. And, we're working with this company that's like, okay, we're going to, and they impressed us at first because unlike other companies that came and said, we'll set you up, 5 appointments a day. They're like, we're going to set you up with 5 or 10 appointments a month. And we're like, oh, okay, that sounds about right. Because that means, and they're charging a lot, don't get me wrong. But in my mind, I'll pay the extra if they're doing what they said they're going to do. Unfortunately, they didn't. They didn't really, the meetings that they got for us, some of them were good, the quality clients, but they just weren't ready to deal with us yet. And that's the one thing that, in a sales capacity, especially in tech, health tech, sometimes you have to ask the question before you even get started to set expectations. If we can provide a solution for you and you see that it's going to work, would you be able to execute this today? And then,
yes,
answer and listen to what they say. And they're like, no, then you know how much time you need to spend on those AmTrust, which is one of the biggest insurance companies in the country. It took me calling her, once a quarter. Then when I was in the area, dropping by with cookies. And it's finally at one point she said, Rob, we're going to give you a shot. And they became one of the biggest clients. It takes persistency, but it also takes you to sit there and say, are you looking to make a switch now? Do you see how this can help you? If I can show you how this can help you, are you ready to execute this now?
yes.
And if the answer is no, you have to respect that, your drip campaign.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is number one is be creative with your follow-up, with your connection request. And number 2 is be persistent, because sometimes it's not that people don't see the value, it's perhaps you're presenting to them a solution they don't even know they have a problem to, or they know they have a problem to because various things that distract them from their core business, they're not sure if you're the right person or company to take them to the next level. And you have to be able to give those time. Just like when we advise startup to pitch to larger VCs and investors, Start early, building relationship, and update those investors on your progress. Make them start to like you and trust you. And when it's the right time, then go for the ask. And so sometimes it is about knowing what to say, your process, be creative and be persistent. And when you can get to the right time and be patient about all the process and ask more questions. So we know we can talk about sales and processing, and there's a lot. We would love for you guys to make a comment below wherever you're listening, or take a screenshot, post it on LinkedIn with your question. We would love to support you and engage on a longer conversation. We love for you guys to be able to accelerate, to take your innovation to the next level, and check out PulsePoint Path. And if you like to have a conversation with us, we're always here to help and to love to extend our hands and our community for your growth. Until next time, bye guys.
Thank you for listening to HealthTech Growth. If you're a healthcare tech innovator or founder interested in being a featured guest on our show, visit healthtechgrowth.io to learn more.